Hello, everyone, and welcome to In the Red. I'm Tony. I'm on intro duty today. Curtis is traveling back to the States and preparing for the World Championships in Arkansas. But don't worry, you're going to hear plenty from him on the episode. Before we start, I got a few notes for you, though. First, this episode is sponsored by Whoop. Whoop is a digital fitness and recovery tool that will help you be at your best as it monitors stress and recovery. Whether you're an elite athlete like Curtis or an everyday working person like me, Whoop can help you stay in the green so you bring your best every single day. Check out the link in the show notes and use the code INTHERED to stay in the green. I also want to remind you that we have an upcoming event in May, and we'd love for you to come out and join us. Curtis, my friends Chad and Blaine at Steuben Brewing, and I will be hosting the Gelukkig Gravel Classic in Hammondsport, New York, held on Gelukkig Lake at the Steuben Brewing Company. We got 50 miles of amazing gravel roads for you to come out and race and ride, beautiful scenery through the vineyards, great views of the lake, awesome descents and killer climbs. Plus, we're going to have a great party afterward. So come on out and join us. You can use the code INTHERED at the link in the show notes to save on our early entry fee price. And make sure you're registered for the Gelukkig Gravel Classic on May 22nd. So before we get into the show, I just want to let you know that Curtis and I recorded this after Ball and Holst, before Herenthal's. So we talk about those events. It was also obviously before the national championships that all happened last weekend. And that note's important only for my ego, because I want to make sure everybody pays close attention to our conversation on the Dutch National Championships. And I just want to say right now, I called it, and there'll be more gloating to come in the next episode. In the meantime, get in the red with Curtis White.
The start line, Curtis White here from you.
Razendsnel in dat trappen.
And ready to go here in Brazenau, and we are underway. Van der Poel alongside Curtis White, Tonart right alongside him, and it's the American that gets a whole shot.
Dat was ronde 1 en op de laatste.
The coffee tasted good this morning. He's got a new podcast, In the Red. To see him with such a great start today, I know a lot of American fans are going to be really pumped by this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of In the Red with Curtis White. We're here. We're a couple of weeks into our European campaign, our European season here. We just wrapped up racing. It's been a busy week, Tony. Racing in Lowenhout, Ball, and then the World Cup in Hulst. Only yesterday, we're recording this on the Monday after a busy double weekend with Ball and Hulst. But man, a lot's changed since the last episode where we recorded with Gage Hecht and Katie Klaus. It's been a week, but a lot has changed. We had some exciting racing, but also some things logistically are coming up and some changes for the rest of the year. So it's exciting stuff. Things are being thrown at us, but we're rolling with the punches. And yeah, let's dive into it. How's everything going?
Good. I've enjoyed the racing over the last week. I'm feeling fresh, so I imagine you are too.
I'm really glad you're feeling fresh.
Yeah, I was feeling so fresh. I got out on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, 2 rides in a row. My first 2 rides since I messed my head up in a concussion in August. So I came back home and I told my wife, I said, "Look, I'm feeling good. I think I'm gonna quit my job and go pro. I think Curtis needs a teammate." So I'm ready for you for next year, man. I'm in training. I'm ready to go.
That's awesome. We could be bunk buddies.
There you go.
Going all over the country.
Shoot me that contract. I'm waiting for it.
All right, Stu, you heard it here. Get your resume ready, Tony.
Yeah, nothing like those dad miles that make you feel like you're the top of the world when you're riding by yourself in the woods,
Well, I mean, it's clearly working for Wout, so why can't it work for you?
That's true. It's
true. The exact same thing.
I figured the effort's probably pretty similar. So
it's the exact same thing, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a blueprint for it. Just do what Wout does. That's all you got to do.
All right. I'm in for next year.
In all seriousness, no, it's almost been, I know you're on break, or you were on break. This is your first day back at school, but throughout your break, it's almost been like a full-time job watching all that cyclocross racing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of work. I gotta make time to sit down and have, a New York Curtis and, be ready to pay attention, get my kids in line, so it's a lot of work, but I do it for you, man.
Do it. We're staying in the red all the time, except when
That's
we're
right.
trying to be in the green.
That's right. That's right. My green's a little different than yours with that can, but that's all right. We can do both. I did make a trip down to the brewery though. Everything's looking good down there. I saw our friends Chad and Blaine. Got some New York Curtis for the races and looked at some of the race course for May that we're going to be putting on. So
was it the Gelukkig Gravel Classic?
Yeah, man. Reg is open. Links in the show notes.
All right. What's the promo code that people can use?
They can use in the red to save 10% before the World Championships. So Reg early. Curtis is going to be there. This course is killer. 50 miles, lots of great terrain through the vineyards, around Keuka Lake, beautiful off-roads. People call them, I think some people call them class 4 roads. We call them here in New York, we call them seasonal use roads. We got a whole bunch of seasonal use sectors. It's going to be good racing.
Yeah. Well, I'm stoked. I'm looking forward to it. And it's an absolutely beautiful area to ride. Right in the Finger Lakes region of New York. It's for those who haven't been there before, it's hilly. It's really hilly. So how long is the course? 45 miles or so?
50 miles,
oh, wow,
5,000 feet.
Yeah. See, that's a long time in the Finger Lakes.
Mm-hmm.
People get lost in the Finger Lakes.
They do. Yeah. It's just hard enough to be hard, and some good steep climbs, lots of good descents, technical stuff. So it's a good mix of terrain. Should make for some really good racing.
All right. Exciting stuff. Well, we're looking forward to that, but right now we're in cyclocross season.
Oh yeah.
And we have a lot of cyclocross to talk about.
We do. We got like 3 races to cover today.
Yeah. And I mean, to really think about it, there was, when we talked to Gage and Katie last week, the original schedule was to have Degum on the schedule as well. So, and I decided not to race Zolder after the World Cup in Dendermonde because Dendermonde was such a heavy course. And it's kind of funny where we were talking to some of the other racers who didn't race it last year. Like, oh man, this is so heavy. What was it like last year? And somehow last year it was that much worse. I think I tracked it was about 1:45 of running a lap. There were a couple laps where we did almost 2 minutes of running a lap this year.
That's nothing.
Well, compared to last year, it was almost 3 minutes a lap.
Right.
And it was, also last year we were dealing with Storm Bella and we couldn't ride the flyover, which that took a bit of time away, but it's just, they did a good job adding some features and kind of manicuring the course a little bit more. And, I think it's a good venue that it is meant to fit at least 40,000 people with the beer tents and the VIP tents. And it's built for the spectators. And it was a little strange doing it without the spectators now. And I don't fully understand what's going on politically here or in Belgium, but there's something to the effect of the Belgian government decided to take away all the crowds from all sporting events. No crowds were allowed. And then the cultural sector started to argue with the Belgian courts saying that these restrictions are proportionate and they're allowing some leniency with some crowds with the cultural sector. I don't know exactly what that means, but Belgian Cycling followed that up with arguing that they were a part of the cultural sector and that they would benefit from having some spectators allowed at their events and were able to do so in a safe environment. So I'm very curious to see what that would look like. Personally, I think a couple thousand spectators at some of these races in a wide open field, if there's no beer tent, you're able to do so in a responsible and safe way. I mean, you're outdoors at a sporting event, and with the restrictions of everyone being masked and the social distancing and all these things that we already know that work, it's a couple thousand spectators, and it adds to that ambiance, that environment. But it's to the point where, well, you can't have 40,000 people crammed in a beer tent, everyone's screaming, hooting, and hollering, and that's just that it's kind of an all or nothing thing. But I think the cultural sector is they made an argument for some leniency, and I think Belgian cycling was pursuing that as well. So over the coming weeks, we may see some more fans and spectators trickling back into some of the cyclocross races.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Unfortunately, you guys won't experience it.
I know, unfortunately.
Your calendar's almost up, which is kind of a bummer. You guys will be racing one more time, probably around the time this comes out. And then you're heading back to the States, huh?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. We were talking about this in the green room, but over the last couple of weeks, since we came to Europe, our original plan was we came right from the national championships the Monday after, flew over. We had our calendar lined up. We were going to stay through the World Cup in Flamanville and then fly back home January 18th. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been dealing with different restrictions that have popped up and a couple cancellations. And if you go back and listen to the first episode after nationals here in Europe, it's the Netherlands wasn't allowing spectators at their events. We started with a World Cup in Rookven. There were no spectators. Then we go to the World Cup in Namur, and it was lined with spectators, and there were no restrictions. That night, I believe, coming back, the Netherlands went into a hard lockdown. Businesses were shut down, and the Belgian government decided to go and limit spectators at events or sporting events, and they were starting to go in the direction of more lockdowns. There were a couple cancellations. Degum was canceled. Events were put in jeopardy. And then now, with our event being, and we're also having to deal with French restrictions too. It's not just Dutch and Belgian. We had to deal with the French restrictions as well, because we're looking at the World Cup in Flamanville in France on January 16th. And for us already, our investment is so big to be over here. And we had to, with how things have changed over the last couple of weeks, really be careful and keep our bubble tight and focus on our health and what's good for the group and maintaining that, because our investment is so big being over here. We're not with our families and our communities already right now. We kind of dove into this a couple of weeks ago, but then also last year when we were doing this podcast, we were one of the few teams to be able to make that investment to come to Europe during the pandemic, when there were no spectators, events were questionable, and not everyone could make that investment. We were fortunate enough, and we took that responsibility very seriously. And now we're kind of back in that boat where we can't go to our favorite coffee shops or restaurants, or things are shut down. And we really do need to think about what's best for the team unit and keeping everyone in the team unit healthy. So, and it's also, if there's, possibly more cancellations, there's this moving landscape or uneven landscape that we're trying to, this moving target that we're trying to hit. And it's just, we can't predict what's going to happen. So I think the best course of action, or we decided the best course of action, was to make our own plan, something that's predictable, because we do have our world championships in our home country at the end of January, at the end of this month. It's already a month away. And it's crazy to think, because it's a goal that so many of us have been looking at for years now. Well before the thought of a pandemic was even, like, no one was even thinking about that. And the world championships in our home country was, it motivated us. We've had to deal with a lot over the last couple of years, and now we're kind of in that home stretch, and we can't really let our guard down. So the end of this week, after Herentals, we're going back to the States, regrouping. Some of us are going to training camps, and looking to bring our best to Fayetteville.
Yeah, definitely getting sick now would be just a huge bummer in terms of potentially hurting your fitness and having you ready for that world championship. But it's also got to be a little bit hard to lose the racing that you're going to lose out of that transition. How are you going to prepare differently, knowing that you're coming back early and getting ready versus having that little extra time to race over there that you'd had planned originally?
Mm-hmm. Well, realistically, I'm missing only possibly 2 races, 2 maximum, at least 1. So my ability to be able to go to training camp now that's an opportunity in and of itself. I'm going to be in a place where it's a little bit more predictable weather. It's more suited towards training. more focused training. I'm able to control my environment. Whereas if I'm here in Europe, we're not going to be going down to Spain for a short block, not with the way things are right now. And we'd be focusing on that one French World Cup. And our plan was to already come back to the States after Flamanville. And we just logistically, it would have been very difficult feasibly to come back to the States after Hoogerheide, because our mechanics, Gary and Mike, there's a lot of work that they do behind the scenes. It's yes, the bike racing and, showing up on race day and everything's looking clean and fresh and, we're performing at our best. That's at the forefront, but the work that they do behind the scenes is really what keeps the program running. Gary's van is stored in the UK. So how does that get back to the UK? Or all the equipment needs to come back to the States. How is that going to get shipped back? Or there's a lot of things to consider. So they needed the time to pack everything up and bring everything back to the States. And it worked out well enough to where we were originally, after Flamanville, fly right to Fayetteville, do a mini training camp in Fayetteville, because the weather isn't too bad right there. It's looking like there may be a couple cold days, but it's, for the most part, you'd be able to get some good training in. But now we have an extra 10 days or so. So that gives us a little bit more time to go back, regroup, go to a training camp, a familiar environment that we like to go to during the winter, or someplace that we know, comfortable place, comfortable bed, find a couple training partners, find a scooter, do some motor pacing, and just trust that process and bring in our best to Worlds. So,
well, yeah, I mean, I like that. I'm glad you're going to be able to come back and get ready.
It's unfamiliar territory. Like, when you're a month away from the World Championships, though, you're so used to everything's dialed. You know where you're going to be every minute of every day from the next, like over the next month, leading into an event like the World Championships. But sometimes you just have these things like these, monkey wrenches that are just thrown into your path, and you just, it's the path that I'm on right now is too unpredictable. So it's better for me to just wipe the slate clean, create a new plan, something that's more predictable, and just commit to that.
Yeah, and I think you've certainly gotten something out of being there anyway. I mean, you've gotten a lot of racing in.
Totally.
And your form looks really, really good. So I want to talk a little bit about the racing that we've seen, because I feel like you're at such a good spot right now. And being able to really watch you race throughout the whole season, it seems like some of the ebb and flow of your form and the sharpness, as that kind of comes and goes for everybody, it seems like yours has been timed pretty well. At least toward the World Championships. You came in the season really, really strong, had some bad luck at the first couple of races when your form was so good. And then you've been through a lot of hard ups and downs throughout it, but it seems like you've been coming up since you got over there, and that this is just sharpening for you. And your last couple of results really look that way to me. So let's talk about some of those results. Let's talk about Lowenhall to start with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great start there. First lap and a half, we saw a lot of you on TV. And then for some reason, we can't get any coverage of anybody beyond the top 10, even a ticker, which has got me a little agitated when I'm watching a few of these races. Like, give me just a ticker of where other people are. Because you look like you were going to make that, you were in that second group coming through in that first lap. There was one point where you were just surrounded by guys in blue, which I thought was just a cool shot. It was just came across the camera for a second. But you had a fantastic start in that race and a solid result. So can you kind of run us through how that went after we lose, kind of any track of you throughout that race?
So just to kind of give it more of a bird's eye view of the season, I felt like I've had a pretty consistent year up to this point, and it's in large part because I've been able to train the depth pretty consistently throughout the year. It's the season's had really good flow to it. I felt like I wanted to really nail those early races, and then there was this lull late October into November, and I really used that as an opportunity I had some local races, Northampton, Falmouth. I was able to train through those and really limit my travel, which is good. I was able to, compete with the best in North America. And I mean, those were solid races. But I was able to train through those, and I wasn't only focusing on Pan Ams and Nationals. I was also focusing on showing up with the depth I needed to perform at a high level through the entire European campaign, because when we come over here, the weather isn't always what we want it to be. It's, for the last few days, actually, I'm sure you saw Lowenhout, Ball, and Hulst, there were some short sleeve skin suits. It was 55 degrees Fahrenheit here for a couple of these days. And it was warm. It was just a warm spell for a couple of days, which is really good for this time of year. It always beats, maybe a little snow, but I really wanted to have that depth to make it through this entire block and have a consistent showing. And I feel like I've been able to. There hasn't been the best luck with Lowenhout. The first 300-400 meters wasn't fantastic. I got pinched a little bit, but then I feel like I had the depth to, over the next lap or two, ride myself into good position. And I think I did. So I was in a group fighting for 13th or 14th in a X2O race that had just about everyone there. That was a pretty stacked field. Now, unfortunately, on the second lap, I was involved in a crash, and it was a heavier fall, and it took me a few laps to get things going again. And it's always unfortunate because you need to assess the situation. How's the equipment? How's the body? Go into the pits, get a new bike, and then you have to regain your momentum, physically and mentally. You need to, and it's difficult to do that alone. So hang on to the group that you're in, hold on as long as you can, get a breather, reset, focus on where are my hands? Where is my head? Am I breathing well? Am I handling the bike well? Because once your head starts to drop, your shoulders start to slunch and you start rocking the bike, then the form kind of goes, and then the power goes. So you need to really identify what's good form. Where am I looking? I'm looking where I want to go. I'm breathing well. My hands are on the bars where they want to be. I'm steering the bike well. I'm handling. The technique is good. And then you're able to regain your momentum. And it takes a lot of time and experience to go through those steps without thinking about it. Because it's so easy, especially for young athletes, to rush and get back up, don't identify the problem, and then just keep going and going, and then you make another mistake and another mistake. And I've been in that position many times, but it's better to kind of take that time to briefly assess, get a new bike, get back on good form, settle back into a group, and then regain that forward momentum. And that comes with experience. So I felt like I had a couple bad laps there in the middle of the race. I had to regain that composure, that momentum. And then I surged hard the last two laps and almost making it back into the top 20, which with that field is a respectable result. But that was one of those days where it was like, damn, I felt good. Stars didn't align, but I felt like there was potential there. And then we go to Ball. 2 days later, we had 1 day of rest in between, and I felt like I was having a clean race. The start was good off the line, but there was a big wasn't like a ditch, but it was like a drop and then a ride back up, like over this road, and I had to put a foot down as we crested the top of this ledge. And I just lost some positioning there, but again, was able to get my positioning back. I had the power and the depth to do so, and then rode a very consistent race. And Ball is such a heavy track. And part of the reason why I earlier decided to not race in Zolder was because I always felt like I showed up to Ball fatigued. And this period is so dense with racing. It's really easy to kind of get behind on the sleep or the nutrition or the hydration. And one of those little steps that really helps the recovery, it's easy to get behind on it. And then before you know it, you're fatigued and you got to dig yourself out of that hole. And it's very difficult to do so when you're racing.
So with Ball, you were 14th to the finish there?
Yep. Yeah, 14th.
So
and it was one of those days that maybe not everyone showed up, but I felt like I could feel as though that I had a stronger and more consistent race. And I was just off that second group that was like trying to chase down. You had that front selection, then you had the second group with Felipe Orts, and Ben Turner was coming through that group. And Like I felt like that's a good group on a good day when things are going well and I had a clean start and everything's lining up. That's the group that I should be in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, again, these races are so chaotic and I just need to keep immersing myself and just doing everything I can to give myself the opportunity to be at that level. We saw it, unfortunately, Corne Van Kessel had a very hard crash.
I was going to ask you about that. That was you, because I saw you kind of get to him after that crash, but you weren't behind him directly when that happened, correct?
No, but when he started to get back going, I rode up to him. I didn't see the crash. I didn't know how, what happened, but I mean, it was to my benefit to work with him at the point. So I pass him on the road. I said, "Come on, Corne, let's go." And just to give him a little motivation.
He's looking for a new helmet.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if it was that lap or a lap later, but he was fiddling with his helmet and come on, man, let's go. Like, don't look back, just keep driving. And he was able to set a hard pace. He was able to do a very quick helmet change in the pits. And even then he was able to ride really well and just following his wheel. That's a high level athlete right there. I mean, when he wants to turn it up, he's easily a top 5 guy.
Mm-hmm.
On his best days, he's a top 5 guy. So being able to follow his wheel and his accelerations and how he rode the course, that was a learning experience in and of itself.
Yeah, that's why I feel like you're right there. Like you talk about almost making those groups that you're just, in those last 2 races, you're like just off from them. And like it's going to come and you're just going to have that breakthrough where you make that group. And then that's sort of where you're at. I think you just need that next push there. And you're so close in both of those, which made it exciting. At Lowenhall, when I could really see you throughout that first lap, I was freaking out. I was like, this is it. He's going to make that group this race. I was so stoked. But both races were fun. Both races were fun to watch all the way around. Wout's just,
he's on another level.
He changed his shoes in one. Like, what was that? Have you ever seen such a thing?
I've only ever had to make one shoe change, and that was very early in my career. Like maybe I was maybe my 3rd year on the team. I was a 3rd year under 23 racing in the elites at Providence. When the KMC CrossFest was in Providence, I did a shoe change there on the C1 day. And I think I rode back to a 3rd place. And that was, for me, that was a really strong ride, but I remember thinking like, who plans for this? Why would anyone put your shoes in the pits? And then from that day on, you just realize that it's part of the game. Over the last few years, we raced with the Giro lace-ups and those, you're not dealing with the boa or a buckle or anything. The lace-ups are they're solid. And we've never had to deal with anything. If anything, they're pretty secure. And if it's a really muddy race and the mud's caked on your shoes, man, you're going to need a power washer to blast off your shoes before you can undo the knot.
Yeah. When the lace-ups kind of came back around, I remember thinking like, what is this? Nobody's going to ride with laces. And I have them now just for riding. Like I think they're just more comfortable.
They're more comfortable. You have more contact points with the foot. I have flat feet. I feel like they work really well for flat feet. And it's just, it just shapes around the foot a little bit nicer. So it's something that we've been using for quite a few years, and it's just, there's no sense in changing it up for us. And Giro's been a really great partner of the team for a number of years, for as long as I can remember. But again, it's, not everyone has that, that piece of equipment.
So when guys are having shoe issues, because we see it quite frequently, is it usually the boa? Is that what happens? Is the boa break?
Yeah, there's been a lot of issues with the boa just because it's so fragile. And in cyclocross, you don't need a big 30-mile-an-hour crash to rip a boa off. You could slide on grass or anything and just something can rip it off. And it is what it is at that point. So it's unfortunate to see something like that happen, but he was able to come back strong enough from it. I think in the pre-race interview for Holst, they asked Ely what did he find out from the day before in Ball, and Ely said that Wout can still win with a 30-second deficit.
Yeah.
So
he looks just unbeatable. Mike, like, holy crap. And I was thinking about it. I wonder, and I'll challenge people. Maybe you can correct me on this if you got a better theory. But I think that if you look at his entire season of all across every discipline that he's raced, in 2021, or even if you want to go from last year's cyclocross world championships to this year's, that he's arguably had the best season of any rider in the history of the sport. Like in where that he's just competed across all these different disciplines and at these levels, whether you're talking about time trials, Tour de France, classics, cyclocross, like I think we're just witnessing unbelievable piece of history here.
We'll leave that up to the internet to prove you wrong.
Who's got a better one for me? Tell me who's had a better calendar year where they've won or been on the podium in more high-level races and disciplines across the board than what we've seen out of Wout van Aert this year. It's just
Van der Poel's been able to do that. I mean, he wasn't winning. He hasn't won as many Grand Tour stages as well, but with the mountain bike, he's been pretty force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I agree. And if he hadn't gotten hurt in the Olympics, I would say we might be having the same conversation.
Yeah, that's been really unfortunate to see that injury flare back up.
Put a damper on him. Yeah, which sucks because I'd love to see him healthy. It doesn't look like he's going to be much of a factor for the rest of the season the way things are going.
I hope he's able to come back because it's just injuries. Just as someone who I've been very fortunate where I haven't dealt with many injuries, but I've had teammates that have really struggled with injuries or just small nagging things that they've had to slowly correct or find a temporary solution to throughout their entire career. And it's I don't know where this quote is from, but so it's something to the effect of the only healthy day that a professional athlete has is their first day of competition. And then it's just there's always something nagging you, something here, something there. And it's as athletes, we have to know our bodies and to know ourselves and what's the best way for us to recover. And if we don't have, through the pandemic, we didn't have the same access to massage or to chiropractic work or physical therapy. Or it's just, we had to really do a lot of that on our own and we had to figure out what works for us. So developing healthier routines, healthier habits, and just, we really had to dial in our own recovery process just to make sure that we were taking care of ourselves, because it's when you have these small injuries, they really do compound into something much larger to where, it could affect it always is a shame to see. So I hope he's able to correct that quickly. And I'm sure he's working with the best of the best. Alpecin is top-notch program. I'm sure they have access to some of the best resources out there. So it's just as someone who's known athletes that, I've seen people struggling with this throughout their careers. It's just, it's a real shame. It's a real shame to see.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully he's back and at Worlds, but even if not, I'm sure we'll see greatness out of him again. He's young and he'll bounce back at some point. And maybe that's what'll have to happen. He'll have to take off a little longer block and we won't see a lot of cyclocross out of him for the rest of the year. Mm-hmm. So when it come down to Wout and Pidcock.
Maybe, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
So how about Sunday? That had to be a tough go after a couple hard days. That course looked like it was really fast, except for this gigantic wall up and down. Is that true? Is it a fast course other than that big climb, or is that just how it looks on TV?
It was really fast. And I will say this, it's really steep when it looks really steep on TV. Because there's sections of Namur where you're like, it doesn't look that bad, and if you're there in person, you realize it's bad. Like it's difficult, it's challenging. But there was a wall that we were on. If I was standing up straight or trying to run up this, I could reach with my arm forward and touch the ground that I was trying to climb up. I was on shouldering my bike, going up as slow as I can and using my hand to balance myself and look for any stable ground. And it was just, it was a challenging course. And with the speed, there was consequence to these descents and drops. There were two nasty drops. One of them was quite a bit higher speed than the other, but I think the how they were able to capture the event, the pictures from the event, with the windmills there, the moats. I mean, it's basically a medieval fortress that we were going up and down, for an hour. And it was just, the course has a lot of character. And I first raced this track. It was actually the beginning of 2020. Corona was starting to ramp up, and there weren't any restrictions at that point. Europe was starting to experience its first couple cases, and you heard some chatter in the news, but that was the end of my season. And I stayed after the World Championships to do a few weeks of racing, and that was the first time I ever raced in Hulst, and it was such a cool venue. So it was nice to come back to this venue. Last year, they had it closer to the coast, outside the city, no spectators, obviously. But then this year they decided to hold it back within the city because there's so much character to this venue. But there were some really challenging sections, and it was almost more challenging because it was fast. Someone asked me after the race, it's like, oh, this is just like Namur, right? And it's like, no, this is nothing like Namur, because I'm going out there on Grifos, our mid-range tire, because it's so fast. And I saw, it's a lot of the Belgians and the Dutch, like, they make fun of a lot of the North Americans whenever they come over, because anytime that they're running Grifos, we're always on the mud tires. So if we're talking about my development over the last few years and climbing that ladder slowly and trying to reach a higher level and getting better technically and reading the races and reading the courses better and tactically being better and then becoming stronger in the training and more dedicated, this is one of those small things that it just kind of snowballs into a greater impact that it has on your end result. And I've been trying to be more comfortable racing on a faster tire constantly. And a big part of it is constantly training on a file tread or a mid-range tire. Even when it's raining out, go out on your file treads or your mid-range tire to get creative with your lines, or always learn how to slide on your bike and maintain control when you're clearly sliding or losing control. So when a track, going back to Rookvan, our first race back, a lot of the North Americans were running like a Baby Limas tire on a very, very fast track, but it was flat and there were some slick corners. There were quite a few slick corners, but how you kind of keep the bike upright and steer with the shoulders more, so you're able to maintain that small traction patch with a Grifo tire while you're turning on slick ground, so you can have less rolling resistance in the straightaways. That's a skill that every European rider has, because every watt counts. I'd actually be very curious to see what the watt difference is between a Baby Limas and a Grifo, or just the watt difference between tires, because you do have lower rolling resistance and you just have to get used to sliding. So with this course in Hulst, you had these massive drops. There were some slick turns. There were a couple. There was a shot along the moat right before the really, really steep run up where it was really boggy and muddy, and everyone has these Grifo tires. So it was very clear who had a heavier mud tire, was able to get traction there, but yet didn't have the fast or less rolling resistance or the faster rolling tire through the rest of the course. So that's part of the technique that I've been trying to train for a couple of years now. And I felt like I was able to technically run a good race, but it was clear who the downhill mountain bikers were, who were able to send it off these drops. And if you did it fast enough, you could, gain 5, 6, 7 seconds a lap just on these drops alone. And that energy adds up.
Yeah, that's crazy. Any idea how fast you're going down this Senate holds?
I can look it up on my,
just out of curiosity.
I can look it up on the Wahoo file. Just give me a minute. I'll pull it up on my my training plan here.
There's actually a question one of our listeners, Kevin Boyle, texted me after the race. He was kind of amazed with a lot of what you were just saying, talking about the difference, wondering about the difference between when do you float the bike and when do you kind of set a direction, and how do you know the difference between when to do those things. And then he was also curious about kind of what speeds you were hitting coming down there, because like you said, it's always hard to tell on TV. It looks fast, but it's not the same as when you're there.
Yeah, it really is. And you could, especially for those who watch, you would definitely be able to identify the steepest, like the biggest, steepest drop where the top guys are just full send down, no brakes. And that was a really impressive display of composure and technique. I thought it was, I mean, I feel like I've made a lot of gains technically, but I was still in awe of just that display right there. I'm still checking the file right now. So I could see my speed. I maxed out at 29 miles an hour. So I'm dropping down that almost 30 miles an hour. And I know for a fact there were guys going faster than me. I wonder if I can pull up on Strava what someone like Michael Van Torenhout or Wout or any of these guys, what their speeds were like there. All right. So according to my training file here, my max speed, 28.8 miles an hour off the steep drop. You go to Wout's file on Strava. He's at just about 30 miles an hour. Eli Iserbyt, 30 miles an hour on the dot. Same spot on the steep drop there. And they were able to really carry that momentum. There was a little bridge that went up, slight left afterwards. And they were able, no pedaling for a solid 10, 15 seconds after that steep drop. And they were just able to carry the momentum and really just let the bike go. And that's just one of those moments where you're able to conserve energy, carry that a little bit more speed, and then just with that little bit of rest, accelerate even harder. And that's just another one of those parts where the gaps are really created. One rider that had a really strong ride there, I thought, was Scott Funston, the U.S. under-23 champion, where he's a really good mountain biker in his own right. And he came up to me a few laps in, and I was kind of going backwards at this point in the race, but I was able to really follow his wheel and kind of learn a thing or two, and just seeing how he was able to send it off some of these drops and handle his bike, that gave me a little bit more confidence to push my limit. And then in the last couple laps, again, I was able to rally, and 29th on the day wasn't the result I hoped for. It wasn't what I felt like I was capable of. But I think with that day, dealing maybe with a little bit of fatigue from a heavy race in Ball the day before. But then also this course really required a very specific skill set. And it's something that we don't often see in cyclocross, which is exciting because, we need this variation in cyclocross courses. But it's from when I raced this last time, in the beginning of 2020 to now, I felt like I had much more confidence and much more, I was able to handle the bike much better on this course. So I've made good gains, but again, there's always going to be room for improvement. So there are some good takeaways, focusing on the positives here. Moving forward. And it's at this point, it's just full rest and going into our last race here on Wednesday.
So where did you feel like you would improve on something like that? On the technical end, on the speed? You seem to do well on the real heavy tracks. And then maybe on the faster tracks is where you struggle a little bit more. Is that accurate, or where's the improvement
I feel like
that you look for there?
I feel like a track like Zolder, I've always felt like that track has been my bread and butter, because it's like that's real high speed racing, and it doesn't have that same challenge as a Hulst. Hulst had a very specific skill set where, it was a really heavy track, and I felt like I had the diesel to go with it. But again, I felt as though from the top guys, I was losing almost maybe 5-6 seconds a lap just on two features alone, on the two drops. And there are a lot of guys in and around my part of the race that were in the same boat as me and going the same speed. But again, that's the difference between the top group and the second group, or the second group and the third group. And that's just one of those things that is really difficult to train. Where are you going to find a feature like that in training?
All right. Yeah, you're going to have to go do some downhill mountain biking.
I guess so. I know a lot of my friends in the North Shore, Massachusetts area are going to be very happy about that, because they're always getting after me about trying to get a trail bike, because the mountain biking in that area is, I love the mountain biking in North Shore. I'm not going to lie. I think it's, from what I've seen, some of the best mountain biking in in the country. Maybe I'm going to upset some people. That's going to be a hot take. North Shore, Massachusetts has the best mountain biking in the country. Prove me wrong. But it's rocky, it's bony, it's difficult. And you really, after a couple hours, your body's just wrenched because it's a full body workout. And there are these really gnarly drops that you have to finesse and really be meticulous with your line choice. And I'm running a Cannondale Scalpel. It's a standard cross country bike with not nearly as much travel as you probably should have on that terrain. But it's a different skill set. So it's just, again, as athletes, we're always looking for things to improve on. So
it's cool. You could narrow it down too, though. You can say these couple of features in this technique, though, because then you kind of have something to grab into. So okay,
yeah, and I felt like everything else on that course, there were some slick spots. I was running the Grifo tires, 2021 PSI, and it's even then that I felt like that was kind of low because it's, there were these massive compressions off these descents, and we were bottoming out in the tires 100%. But it's just, you got to learn how to ride the equipment and, get the most out of it. So it's, again, focusing on the positives.
Yeah, it's a good stretch, man. I mean,
and I will admit I was a bit tired. I had a good, the start wasn't great. I was pushed, I was on the outside. I felt like I went from maybe a 12th, pushed on the outside, maybe back to a 20th or a 22nd. And then there was a big hold up on the first off camber. Swiss champ Kevin Kuhn got his pedal caught on the post and couldn't move it. And someone had their handlebars jammed up in his wheel, and everyone's pushing into him, and everyone starts yelling, go, go, go. And there's just, you can't do anything. And then you start to freak out, and he starts to push back, trying to create some space. And it's just, it was an awkward point where you're just jammed up and you can't go anywhere. So it's everyone's, unfortunately I was caught behind that, and the top 10, top 15 are riding away. So, but that's a part of cyclocross. That was a pinch point.
Cool. So, juniors, we've had some really good U.S. junior results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been really, there are a couple programs over here right now. There's the USA Cycling Development, made possible through the Mud Fund. They have some athletes over here. Jeff Proctor's Eurocross Academy has brought some athletes over. And it's really encouraging to see several avenues of development happening here. In Lowenhout, both the junior women and junior men had strong showings. There were 4 riders in the top 12. Actually, it was 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th for the junior women in Lowenhout, with a pretty deep field there. Junior men, how many in the top 10 do you think?
3.
Correct. 3 athletes in the top 10, which is, that was really, really, really cool to see. We had Jack Springer in second. And it was, I actually wonder, it's because I remember being on the podium in Lowenhout as a junior back in, I believe, 2012, with a very young Matthew Vanderpoel taking the win. Logan Owen was second, and then myself in third. So it's just that's a race that's always near and dear to my heart. And I always love seeing when young athletes are able to succeed at that level and making that investment to continue to come over here, and getting comfortable being uncomfortable, as I often say. And then in Ball, on a really, really heavy track there, Catherine Sarkisov, second place in the junior women. And again, a number of junior women and junior men sprinkled in there in the top 10 and top 15. So it's just, that's what we need to be doing, exposing young American athletes to the highest levels of sport. And it's a reality check. You can go back on cycling news. The athletes at the Eurocross Academy have been putting out regular blog posts. If you haven't checked those out, I definitely encourage you to, because it's a really cool, unique perspective that these young athletes are getting and able to share. and to be honest, not everyone is going to make it to the pro cycling ranks, but these are formative experiences for these athletes, where you're able to gain confidence, or again, learning to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, or that's where true growth happens as a person, not only just as an athlete. So these are formative experiences for these young people and these young adults. So I'm very excited to see as their block comes to an end very soon this weekend. So we have the racing in Gelukkig is tomorrow. We are not racing that race. It's a bit of a drive for us, and with packing up and leaving soon, and our resources are going more towards getting one quality race left in Herentals and before we go back home. So we're going to be missing the race in Gelukkig. Again, I want to make sure that I'm getting the pronunciation right, and I'm trying to, just the cultural part is I want to learn as much as I can. I learned how to say Happy New Year correctly.
You tweeted that, didn't you?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
All right. So, all right. If you pull up the tweet right now, how would you pronounce it?
Oh boy, you're going to kill me on this one.
Yeah. As the English teacher, how would you pronounce that?
All right. Let me see. Gelukkig nieuwjaar. How's that?
Gelukkig nieuwjaar.
Gelukkig nieuwjaar.
Oh my God. See, this just proves just how talented us Americans are at being multilingual in our ability to brutally mispronounce other languages.
I apologize if I've offended anyone.
I think they're just laughing at you, Tony.
I'm sure. Well, they should be, because I'm sure it sounds ridiculous. How do you pronounce it?
A couple days ago, I wasn't much better. So, Gelukkig nieuwjaar.
Oh, yeah, that's what I said.
Yeah, close enough.
Yeah.
Same but different.
Right. To each his own. Agree to disagree.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, on a serious note, every time we come over here, and I'm sure anyone who's trying to learn another language finds this, but it's whenever you come over here, I feel like I'm able to pick up small things here and there. I studied French all through high school, and bits and pieces come back, but if you don't use it for a long period of time, it slowly goes away. But it takes a few weeks to get warmed back up and reacquainted with some of these, these words or these phrases. And I feel like of my time coming over here, I've been able to pick up as much as I can, enough to get by or have a basic understanding, certainly around a bike race. But it's always nice to be able to pick up on something new.
Yeah, very good. So, what else we need to know about this curse period? And we feel like it's kind of a downer. It's coming to end, but I'm excited for Worlds.
Yeah, it's so we have Gelukkig tomorrow. It's Tuesday. When this comes out, everyone will know the results. People will likely know the results from Herentals by the time this comes out. That's on Wednesday. And then this coming weekend is European National Championships. So the Belgians, the Dutch, the Swiss, the French, everyone has their championships this weekend.
What's going to be the best race to watch? I already know which one I want to watch the most. Which one do you want to watch the most?
The Dutch Women's Championship is going to be really exciting.
That was my pick,
and then the Swiss men's race. I hope the Swiss men's race is going to be televised, because I think that's going to be a good battle between my buddy Timon Rugg and Kevin Kuhn. Both those guys are going very well right now. They've had very strong rides, so I think it's going to be exciting to see of those two guys who comes out on top. And the Swiss courses are always so fun, but hopefully they have a feed for it. But I mean, the words on everyone's lips is constantly the Dutch women. How just formidable the development pipeline is. And it seems like they're able to produce incredible athletes and kind of cultivate that it's really, really cool to see. So and I think that a lot of countries really envy that, the resources that are going into those athletes and, that program and the attention that's been given. So I think it's, from Mariana Voss to the young up and comers, I think it's going to be a really exciting one.
Yeah, definitely. That was
Celine just had a couple really good rides where I think her confidence is coming back. So we'll see. Lucinda's on a roll.
I don't know if she can hold out. Maybe for this one, but
really,
I think she has
a really solid. Really?
Yeah, she's gonna get beat. She's gonna get beat at some point. There's too many people that are too close to her.
Well, yeah, inevitably at some point.
I mean, at some point, like meaning the World Championships. I don't think she's gonna hold it.
Yeah.
I think she's gonna get beat.
Maybe. I don't know, but she has, a really good road background with, she has that depth, and I could see that depth being, she has more depth than most other cross athletes. That's the thing that I think she has going for her. And the mentorship of the Dutch coaches, Gerben de Knecht, and being on Sven's team, and the mentorship she gets from Sven. And I think routinely you see her pre-riding with Sven, a number of different courses. So I think that, whatever happens, it's going to be a really exciting battle. And I know that we're going to be back in the States, but I'm going to be glued to my TV that morning. I'm going to try and, I'm going to be texting all my friends to see if I could borrow laptops just to have the Dutch race here, the Belgian race here. You need to have all the championships going.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, it's going to be exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But other than that, it's kind of funny to think again over this European block, how things have changed and how, we've had these curveballs thrown at us, and it's as it is in life, but in professional sport, especially, you have to roll with the punches, and you try to make a plan. A lot of times it works out, but sometimes it doesn't, due to circumstances well out of your control. So, we have confirmed our travel back home to the States. We're leaving back to the States this coming Friday at the end of the week before the European Championships. And then we're kind of trying to create a plan quickly, but also the right plan for preparation for the World Championships in Fayetteville.
All right. Can't wait. Can't wait for Fayetteville.
We'll have fresh new information on the next episode of In the Red. How's that?
Definitely. Yeah. And if you guys didn't check it out yet, make sure you listen to the last one. As of this recording, we hadn't actually published it yet because we were kind of going back and forth, but that was a lot of fun. So if people haven't heard that one, Gage was awesome. Katie was awesome.
That was a cool dynamic because we haven't had that many people on at once.
I know that was cool. I'm really I love that Gage is a pilot. That was really cool to learn. And I wanted to ask Katie if she ever put on all of her national championship jerseys at once. And I forgot to ask her that. But I think she has 30 some. So I'm wondering if she could ever put them all on at one time. Or if she's ever worn one every single training ride in a row and gone through all of them. I think she should do at least one of those two things if you have that many. I don't even know what you do with them when you have that many.
Imagine being Corinne Rivera.
I know. What do you
do?
She has
with them all? 3 times as many.
She's give them to Goodwill after a while. I don't even need this anymore.
No. You got to hold on to that. That's legacy right there.
Yeah. No, they should both of them should, that picture of Lance Armstrong after after he got caught, and then he put that defiant picture of himself laying on his couch with his jerseys above him, you can't take my jerseys kind of an attitude. Do you remember that photo? Yeah. They should do that with theirs. It would look way cooler. They have way more than 7.
Yeah, if you have a room that could fit 35 jerseys.
Right?
You're going to need a whole gymnasium.
Awesome. Yeah. How you like that, Lance?
Katie Klaus, you heard it here first.
Yeah, I got a lot of ideas for that. I missed the boat on it. Maybe she'll come on again. I can ask her all those questions.
I don't know. We've been asking her to come on for so long. I think it
was our one shot, huh?
I know, right? Well, maybe better luck next year.
Maybe. I'm going to write them all down. I'll remember.
All right, Tony. Well, it's late over here. I got to get going to bed here. We got Herentals in a couple days. I'm still recovering from a big double weekend here. Ball, Holst, and then before that, Lowenhout. We kind of covered a lot.
We did, man.
I have to say we were goofing around a lot too.
Yeah, what's new?
Well, thanks for the time, man. This is a fun episode. We had a lot of racing to catch up on, and there's still some really exciting racing for everyone to pay attention to over the next coming weeks, and really over the next month. World championships are coming to the US. This is something that a lot of us have been looking forward to for a very long time. And, it's go time.
That's right.
And,
get after that last result, man. Get after that last one over there and be ready for Worlds.
Exactly. That's all we can do. Tony, take care. You have a good night. Everyone, thank you for listening. And before we sign off quick, I want to give everyone a quick reminder. If you haven't done so yet, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment wherever you get your podcasts. That helps us grow the show, get the word out. And really at the end of the day, we're doing this because we love the sport. And I love sharing what I've learned, my process, my racing, the results. It's just encouraging as many people to get involved in the sport as we can. So if we can get one more person on the bike racing cyclocross, then I'm happy with that. So thank you all for listening again. Really appreciate it. Take care, stay healthy, keep riding. We'll catch you all next week.